One of the most effective political ads of the year so far, if you ask me, is an ad that was launched during the conventions over the past 2 weeks. It's an absolutely incredible ad, but I think it sort of got squeezed out of the news cycle because of everything else going on around the convention. So I don't know if you have seen this before, but you should see it. Watch.
My son was the first person to die in combat under Donald Trump. Just 5 days into his presidency, Trump ordered Ryan's SEAL team into Yemen. Not from the Situation Room with all the intelligence assembled, but sitting across a dinner table from Steve Bannon. There was no vital interest at play, just Donald Trump playing big man going to war. And when it went horribly wrong...
When you lose a $75 million airplane, and more importantly, American life is lost and wounded, I don't believe that you can call it a success.
Donald Trump demeaned my son's sacrifice to play to the crowd. For nearly 4 years, Trump has assailed our country's core values. When Russia put bounties on our troops' heads, Trump defended Putin instead of our military.
I think it's a hoax.
He kneecapped the Postal Service to undermine our right to vote.
This election will be the most rigged election in history.
He's misled us throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all.
200,000 Americans will have died before we vote. They and Ryan have one thing in common. It didn't have to be but for Donald Trump. If you hear one thing, let it be this. Don't trust Donald Trump with your kid's life or your own.
Remarkable ad that was produced during the conventions by the veterans group Vote Vets. I'll tell you, we've reached out to that Gold Star father, Bill Owens, for comment on that ad. We, of course, would love to speak to him at some point about this. But as of now, it doesn't seem like he's doing any public statements other than that remarkable ad that we just showed you. Certainly that should be enough. But meanwhile, the organization that produced that with Bill Owens, Vote Vets, they really have been punching above their weight in this election cycle, both in terms of this kind of content they have been able to bring to the fore, but also some very well-timed stuff, including this I'm going to show you today, which they put out timed to coincide with the president doing an event in front of a battleship today.
Donald Trump is panicking, finding any excuse to show up in military communities. He knows if elections were held today, he'd lose the military vote in a landslide. 60% of active duty officers disapprove of his presidency because Donald Trump disrespects those who serve.
He's not a war hero. War hero. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
Our troops are in more danger today because of Donald Trump's betrayals. He abandoned our Kurdish allies in Syria, playing into Russia's hand. He wouldn't stand up for our troops when Putin put bounties on their heads in Afghanistan. His weakness emboldens the enemy. Now, Russia is directly engaging U.S. troops, slamming into our patrols in Syria, intercepting our bombers, and flying their bombers dangerously close to American airspace. Trump's refusal to defend America's national security is dangerous. His refusal to stand up for our troops is humiliating. His threat to deploy active duty troops against American citizens is unconstitutional. So when it comes to the military vote for the next commander-in-chief, Trump's not leading, he's losing.
New ad out today from, again, Vote Vets, which has been doing just these very effective, very hard-hitting, very pungent anti-Trump ads over the course of this whole cycle. And that point that they are making from a veteran's perspective about how America, Trump's refusal to defend America's national security is dangerous, his refusal to stand up for our troops is humiliating. That the United States is being hurt by Trump being so subservient and weak when it comes to Russia. That is a very live issue, not only in politics right now, but in the news. Today, ABC News was first to report on the Trump administration blocking the release of a Homeland Security intelligence bulletin that was meant to warn law enforcement agencies around the country about Russia interfering to help Trump win the November election by promoting false propaganda that's circulating first in Russian propaganda outlets about Joe Biden supposedly being in poor mental health. That bulletin about Russia promoting that line against Biden to interfere in our elections, that bulletin was done in July. It was set to be released to federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. But the Trump administration pulled it at the very last minute and wouldn't let it get out. 2 months later, that intelligence warning still has not gone out. The Trump campaign, of course, meanwhile, has been pushing that exact line against Joe Biden, even as Russian propaganda outlets have been pushing it too, even as that's part of the Russian interference effort. They are dovetailing their own efforts with that. The only thing the Trump administration has done is stop the U.S. public from being warned that that is part of a Russian government operation. And, you know, this Trump sort of subservience to Russia, in instances like this, obviously it serves his interests, but it has an impact on the country as a whole. And it has a very, very important and point of relevance to what's happening right now with Russia in the world and with Russia in their behavior toward us. Russia, as of today, is now being blamed for yet another nerve agent attempted assassination of Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny. We're also, in the past week, seeing direct physical confrontations between Russian and U.S. troops. The president has so far been silent on both of these matters. This isn't just a political issue for the election. This is live for the news right now. Former U.S. Russia Ambassador Michael McFaul is going to join us live next to talk about it. Stay with us.